Had been featured, I think, in like a Washington Post article, and I was like, I'm just going to reach out to her. Are the people receiving those just people who've signed up?
Yeah, I mean, there are times that, we'll get some folks back that are like, hey, thank you for this. I'm white though, and we're like, we still care about your mental health.
15 love, 30, 40 love, advantage you till we get to
Gene, what did you find?
Moving Wisconsin forward, one joke at a time. This is Kristin Brey with As Goes Wisconsin.
Yada, yada, yada.
Hello, Wisconsin!
Hello, Wisconsin. It is Wednesday. It is my Thursday. I actually said that this morning as I posted the social media. I was like, it's a guest-filled Thursday. And then someone politely texted me, it's Wednesday. Well, it's my Thursday.
That's right. You got Friday and Monday off.
I got Friday and Monday off. Go get hitched.
Yes.
Very excited.
Coming soon.
Well, I'm excited. We do have a guest, like the whole show is basically guest today, which is super exciting.
Yeah.
So we're going to cover a lot of different topics. But our first guest for the first half hour is a digital organizer from the Human Rights Campaign. She works out of Green Bay, Wisconsin to expand civil rights for LGBTQ plus people across the state and the country. Her pronouns are she and her. Eliza Cousin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be beamed into Waukesha today.
Oh, you're beamed into Waukesha, which is where we are. That does not sound like a Green Bay accent.
No. What gave it away was it? I haven't even said the word bagel yet.
Oh, that is very different than my bagel.
I've been practicing. No, the hardest word is squirrel.
Squirrel.
2 syllables, not squirrel. Yeah, still.
Jane, doesn't your husband also say, what does he call squirrels?
Squirtle.
Squirtle. How's rural? Can you say the word rural? Very well?
I can.
Rural.
You can.
I feel like I can't really. Rural. Rural. Yeah.
Eliza, what about aluminum?
You mean aluminium? Like, we could go all day.
We could do this all day. Well, I mean, I don't want to stay too long on how you made it to Green Bay, Wisconsin, but you are a newbie, not newbie. How long have you been in Green Bay?
I've been in the States and Wisconsin since 2014.
Okay.
First to Ohio, then Madison, and then Green Bay as a trailing spouse. So this is where my husband's family is from, and we've made a little home here in his hometown. It's such a wonderful home base for activism. If you're someone who wants to make the world a little bit better and a little bit fairer, there is no better place to be effective.
In Wisconsin or in Green Bay or both?
I would say both. Yeah, I'm here sitting in the 90th Assembly District, which is a progressive bastion, really in a sea of red.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely got that safe haven vibe in Green Bay.
Is Christina Shelton your assembly rep?
She is, yes. Although I was actually redistricted on the border. So I was shunted out of the 90th into the cold of the 88th.
And who is that representative?
John Marco.
I've heard about him.
Yeah, he's a treat.
He's not a big fan of our friend of the show, Kristin Lyerly.
Yes.
I'm waiting to have her back on so we could look at some of his Facebook lives that seem very entertaining.
Yeah, it's always when he's like driving and he's just like talking about the traffic and the weather. And it's like, did you need to do this on Facebook Live, or could you just like call your best friend? I know like the drive from Green Bay to Madison is not that stimulating. I do it often. I feel like that's not the right medium.
Like, call your mom. Catch up with your mom.
Your mom probably wants to hear from you. Yeah. So, but who am I to judge other people's content? It's hot.
Exactly. And speaking of content, so you are a digital creator and digital content organizer for Human Rights Campaign. For those who don't know, tell us more about Human Rights Campaign.
Yeah. So we are the largest LGBTQ civil rights organization in the world. We have about 3.5 million members across the US, and we work at every level of government, from local all the way up to the White House, to elect candidates that support LGBTQ equality, that believe, that trans kids should have a good time at school. It's really one of the benchmarks. And making sure that the laws that get passed by our paid and elected representatives really help put people on an equal footing in society, regardless of who they are or who they love.
And so, obviously, like you said, this is it's the whole the headquarters is in DC, but there's different state locations as far as work that's being done at the state level or even the local level. And so, what are some of the endorsements or legislation that you're working on in Wisconsin, and how does that relate to stuff that's happening at the federal level?
Yeah, I love that question. So unlike, our friends at like Planned Parenthood or the ACLU, we're just one organization. My bosses in DC, that's where our office is. We work remotely on the ground in Wisconsin. And we treat Wisconsin very special. Because, the whole premise of your show, as goes Wisconsin, right? So HRC recognizes how politically significant our state is. And we are one of 6 priority states, the others being Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and I've lost count. So those are really the Obama-Trump states plus Georgia, the ones that really do have the power to flip. And so within those 6 states, HRC has really invested in organizing at the local level. So before I was promoted in 2018, I started my career at HRC as a local field organizer, working in Green Bay and the Fox Valley to really build up LGBTQ political power and build up the community. And I was the first person to ever have that role. We had never had someone working at that local level before in the state of Wisconsin. I had counterparts in Milwaukee and Eau Claire and Madison, and we've continued that field program pretty much uninterrupted from 2018 all the way through to the 2022 elections. And so it is a huge investment.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what does the capturing or leveraging the power of the LGBTQ vote look like in Wisconsin? And is because obviously there's a lot of allies, there's a lot of people who fall and identify being part of that group. And so what does it look like to actually organize them and get them behind a candidate, get them behind legislation?
The way I explain it is I'm like a social worker, but for politics. If you are in a state of personal crisis, you would go to a counselor or a social worker. If you're in a state of political crisis, which I assume all of our listeners are, then you need an organizer, because they're going to operate in the same way, help you work out what your priorities are, help you work through your feelings in response to what is happening in Madison and Washington, work out how you fit, and then navigate what you can do about it and really help you feel like you have your agency back in the democratic process. So what that looks like, in 2018, I started this event called Queer Caffeine, which are now held around the country. And we would just meet in a coffee shop on a Saturday morning and talk. And sometimes I'd come with an agenda. Sometimes I'd do like a little training, but really we just kept it flexible. And it's that amazing thing that happens with a group of people. The group decides what they need that day. Like the group defines the energy. So we've had ones where, people were sharing their coming out stories or talking about how to support their queer kids. And we would end in pre-pandemic, like tears and group hugs because that's what we needed, right? That kind of collective group therapy. And then other times we would have a candidate come in and pitch themselves, or we'd be like, there's this bill, or there is this nonsense happening in the city of Nina. What can we do about it? So really just being a conduit between that really vibrant and diverse LGBTQ community and the political process, because those can be very disparate. People don't always understand that they can and should be involved and interested in politics, because, you know, people have been burned. They have good reason not to be paying attention.
And so, as you said, candidates come in and sometimes pitch themselves. And so who are, in this cycle as we go into the general in November, who are some of the candidates that the group has endorsed?
So far, we've endorsed Mandela Barnes, US Senate, Tony Evers for governor, and Josh Cole for attorney general. So we're really starting at the top of the ticket. We endorsed Mandela just before the primary happened. And we, you know, that was not much of a stretch. He has been such a strong advocate, and, you know, really modeling allyship. Obviously we prefer him to Ron Johnson.
Yes. We're going to talk about Ron Johnson later in the show. He just said another thing. He's like, he said something about pharmaceutical companies being hurt by this. It's just like, the man, yeah, anyways, I digress. Keep going.
The Australian news cycle I woke up to is someone wrote an op-ed about how tenants have more rights than landlords. Same logic. Like, I feel that's Ron Johnson logic.
All right. Well, we have to take a break quickly, but when we come back, I want to talk about the Marriage Equality, the Respect for Marriage and Equality Act, and where any updates on that, because I think obviously our Senator Tammy Baldwin has taken the lead on that, and what updates we've seen and where it is in the Senate. And then I also want to talk about the HRC inclusivity scores and how Wisconsin's top cities are faring on that scale. So our guest today is Eliza Cousin from Human Rights Campaign. And when we come back, this will still be As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey.
The greatest radio show ever could be your greatest advertising investment ever. Partner with the Devil's Advocates and activate our loyal, educated, engaged audience today. In-show interviews and sponsored special events considered across Wisconsin. Affordable digital and terrestrial ads available in Chicago and Minneapolis and directly on the Devil Radio app. Make a deal with the Devils and get the Devil's Advocates bumped to your bottom line. Call or text 844-967-2789.
Do you want to talk to her? I can bring you up.
Black Shirt Football is now on the radio. Every Friday night, WAUK 540 AM and 101 FM The Shaw will be broadcasting Waukesha South football games live. Cheer on the Black Shirts as they do battle with the toughest conference in the state. Pre-game for Waukesha South football starts at 6:30 every Friday with downtown Donnie Brown and Johnny Watermelon. Only on WAUK 540 AM and 101 FM The Shaw. Waukesha South football, go Black Shirts.
Join the WAUK 540 AM and 101 FM The Shaw team when we broadcast live from the Waukesha Farmers Market, beginning Saturday, June 4th and lasting all summer long. Former Waukesha Alderman Don Brown hosts This Week in Waukesha 8 to 9 a.m. Then former U.S. Attorney James Santel launches his new Saturday morning show from 9 to 11. Raised in the Shaw with host Joel Clayfish rounds out the Saturday morning lineup 11 to noon. Come to the Waukesha Farmers Market for the only radio program broadcasting live from the Shaw.
Hey, this is Matt from Design Garden. Remember when the internet was new? Back then you had to leave your house to start a business. Companies used to pay programmers bags of cash to get online. Now, small businesses can get online with a Facebook business page, or Squarespace, or Google My Business, or WordPress. But which tools should you use? Can you afford to go down the wrong path? Design Garden uses modern tools to build your website the right way. Find us online at design.garden. Again, that's design.garden.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin, Brey. Our guest this half hour is Eliza Cousin. And speaking of Gaga, she was in Chicago this week. I did not make it down. I had lots of friends who made it down, including some who had some fabulous outfits on. Did you actually make it to Chicago to see
Sadly,
Gaga?
no. I assumed that HLC would be flown in. We'd call it a staff retreat, but sadly, no.
Yeah, big miss. God, she's so talented. So before the break, I kind of pitched this up because I'm curious. Obviously, this is a huge push and priority for HRC, but it's been about a month since the House passed the Respect for Same-Sex Marriage or the Respect for Marriage Act, and now it's in the Senate. What are some updates as far as how close we are? It seemed like it was something that Tammy Baldwin, taking the charge, was talking that she thought that she could find 10 Republican senators to vote for it. Are there any updates?
Well, I mean, we are really pushing hard to lobby those senators on the fence, including Ron Johnson. First he was for it, then he wavered, then he was for it again. So he really is in the process of deciding whether or not to support this bill. And if we could get, a hardcore conservative like Ron Johnson, I think he'll bring other conservatives with him, and we'll very easily get to 60 votes in the Senate. And I know that Tammy is very optimistic. This is just such a good example of when those citizen calls and emails really do make a difference, because legislative staff, they literally keep a tally of the calls they get that are for and against. And sometimes that's what makes up a legislator's mind. If you have 242 calls in favor of something, but 308 calls against it, that can be the coin toss. It really can be a numbers game. So I would encourage everyone listening to call or email Ron Johnson's office and really help deliver not just him, but the conservative wing of the Republican Party to support the Respect for Marriage Act.
How much internal polling does HRC do as far as public opinion? It's one of the issues that people point to of how quickly things, in my teenage to adult lifetime, right? Of even if you look at Obama in 2008, wouldn't come out and just say he was in support of same-sex marriage, right? And then by the end of his term, his 2 terms, we had it, right? And so it was such a quick succession of rights, gaining access to different rights. Clearly, the fight is not over there, clearly, but it seems like the public opinion, and this is where I put the caveat in of knowing the echo chamber I've always lived in, having only lived in very liberal places. But does the HRC do much public opinion polling on where the country is on this issue?
We do. We have the HRC Foundation, which is a public policy and research arm that does really fantastic work. We also aggregate a lot of the private sector polling that's done by places like Gallup. I'm not sure of the exact statistic because it was recently updated, but we do know that marriage equality is just overwhelmingly popular in Wisconsin and America. People assume that it's the law of the land, that it is a constitutional right. It's not something that they consider as something that's problematic the way they did even 10 years ago. Australia, where I'm from, only got marriage equality in 2015. So that's where we are culturally. And you're right, it is, whiplash pace of change. But now we're seeing that similar trajectory with things like trans inclusion and access to gender affirming care. So we're seeing the needle shift, and that's why we're seeing so much backlash federally and at the local level, because some people can't handle that pace of change.
Yeah, that is certainly true. So this was actually not on my radar until we had a guest within the first couple of weeks, Kristin Leidy, who is also in Green Bay, and she had referenced that in the HRC inclusivity score, is that the correct term for it?
It's the Municipal Equality Index.
Thank you. how that Green Bay had actually performed pretty well. And so I would love for you to talk a little bit more about what that index is and what are the different attributes that go into kind of measuring a city and where it's at.
Yeah. So the MEI is an indicator of two main things. It is a measure of LGBTQ livability. So people in our community will look at where a city they're considering living ranks from 1 to 100 to really judge, how welcome they will be in a community. So it's really important for, population growth, like retention, tourism, all those things. The second thing it really indicates is how a municipality, how a local government acts as an institution for its community. So we have scores on things like policing and criminal justice, on acknowledgement of pride, of whether the city as an employer pays for domestic partners' benefits, things as simple as that. And all of these scores go into create that aggregate score from 1 to 100. So just in the last 4 years, we've seen Green Bay become really Wisconsin's greatest success story. And breaking news, these scores for 2022 are about to be released. And for the first time, Green Bay has scored 90.
Oh, wow.
Which is up from 38 just 5 years ago.
That is a huge shift and a huge improvement. That is great to hear.
And that's because, the work of HRC endorsed Mayor Eric Genrich has taken this on as a personal project. He's made it his team's priority, and he's received backlash from that. He's had to defend all his actions in front of the Common Council. So, it's a bold step, and it's really starting to see in the score. Whereas, Kenosha, is still down at 39. So we have a lot of work to do.
Well, quickly, before we have to let you go, where can people find more information on how to get involved in the Human Rights Campaign in Wisconsin?
hrc.org/Wisconsin.
Easy peasy. All right. Thank you so much, Eliza. It was great to talk to you. We'll have you back soon.
Thanks.
WAUK 540 AM. Brookfield's choice for News Talk Radio. Streaming 24/7 at WAUKradio.com.
There's no way those clowns want honest debate. Because if you are a dirty, backstabbing, swamp creature, you can't debate. They have no ability to debate.
We take any calls on this show, you know that. I like the fact that we're open to everybody. We don't agree with everybody, and we can debate them, but we let them have their piece. They say their piece.
Listen to Matt Flynn Direct, weekday mornings from 6 to 8.
Speaker Voss, I understand you don't have any children. Does that mean he's been possibly practicing
sex with
contraceptives?
What?
Or is he just less than a man? How do you go through the entire life 3 wives later and no chitlins?
Shooting blanks?
Perhaps.
Pull and pray.
Doubtful.
Not getting any.
Unlikely.
Unable to perform.
More likely.
Paying for it.
I hate to judge.
We don't judge here. We're the Devil's Advocate.
Listen to the Devil's Advocates live weekdays.
I'm Ed Donahue with an AP News Minute. Soaring gas prices have been dropping, but they're still high. Here's the AP's Rita Foley.
The national average for a gallon of gas is now $3.94, says the AAA. That's 59 cents less than a month ago, but 76 cents
Hi, Stacey.
more
How you
than a
doing?
year ago. The AAA says almost 2/3 of adults have changed their driving habits or lifestyle in the past few months.
Stacey, can you hear me?
As they wrestle with these historically high prices at the pump.
The head of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention announced a shakeup of the organization.
Stacey, can you hear me?
Intended to make it more
Oh,
dynamic.
great.
Dr.
Perfect.
Rochelle Walensky
Just say your last name for me once.
It is Khalees.
Khalees. Okay. I was going to say Callie, so I'm glad I asked. Great. Happy to have you on the show.
But not acting quickly.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear what's special about tonight. And unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to make it tonight. Getting married on Saturday, so things are a little crazy this week. But it is such an incredible event, so I'm excited to talk about it.
And after a couple of weeks, I mean, It's been quite the success this summer. So, I mean,
Yeah.
people are coming out in droves.
Because there was only one last year, right?
We were only able to do one due to the COVID restrictions. And so we did one in August.
Yeah, I was at that one. And it was really great.
Yeah. So, and it's been building since. So it's been great.
Well, we have about a minute left. Yeah, about a minute left. So we'll bring you down and then bring you back as soon as we're back from commercial.
This ad is over. Just tell us what you need and we'll handle the rest. Sending a top pro to get it done. Or browse reviews, compare quotes from pros, and connect instantly. All for free. For everything from routine maintenance to a dream remodel. Because however you want your project done, we'll get it done. Download the app or go to Angie.com. That's ANGI.com to get started.
For Civic Media, I'm Jane Matnair with your headlines. The man who fraudulently requested a handful of absentee ballots that didn't belong to him, Harry Waite, is out with a statement he will contest the certification of the August 9th primary results in Racine County. Those contested results include Wisconsin's 63rd Assembly District, where incumbent Assembly Speaker Robin Vos narrowly defeated a primary challenger by less than 300 votes. Meanwhile, Speaker Robin Vos told reporters Tuesday his former special prosecutor Michael Gableman, who looked into the 2020 election, could lose his law license over his conduct in the more than $1 million taxpayer-funded investigation, which ultimately found no evidence of widespread voter fraud. Mostly sunny today, high 79, clear tonight, low 56. You're listening to The Shaw, 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM.
The bottom feels so much better than the top. So much better.
Well, welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin, Brey. Tonight, the Milwaukee Night Market is back for the third time this summer. I've gotten to go to the first two, and I went for my first one ever last summer. But because now I have a show and we can talk about it, we're joined today by Stacy Calise, who's the executive director of the West Town Association of Milwaukee. Welcome to the show, Stacy. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Kristin. Excited to be here.
So what are the last minute things you have to get done before tonight?
Yeah, I actually had to duck out of our setup, so I'm glad to actually be up here in the AC. It's not too bad out, but we actually closed the streets down at 10 a.m. So
wow.
You know, it's a full day of production. If you've ever seen the infrastructure that our event production partner, Events by Design, starts putting up trusses for all the cool lighting that really makes it this quaint, environment on Wisconsin Avenue. That takes some time. So that all starts at 10 a.m. And so my team's out there now busting away at the setup while I get to be in here talking to you. So
perks of being the boss.
Right.
So I haven't even checked. What does the weather look like? Are you guys clear for weather tonight?
Yeah, it actually, there may be a little pop-up shower between 3 to 5, but it looks really nice, like in the 70s. So I think that's best case scenario for us. Having dealt with the events and weather in the past, it's looking good. And no wind, which is precarious for that event, because if you've ever been on West Wisconsin Avenue, it becomes a bit of a wind tunnel, and you've set up 100 tents. It can get dicey, but so it's looking beautiful. And so therefore I think the crowd will be very robust tonight.
Absolutely. Because last in July, it was 30,000 people, right?
Well, that's our estimate. We actually have a time-lapse video that our event production partners at Walden did for us, like starting at 10 a.m. through around midnight. So it shows production through, and it just shows this crowd converge. And we don't know those numbers for sure, but that's our estimate. And I think one of our gauges is how much beer we sell in Wisconsin. So like we're almost out of every kind of beer. So
always a trusted measure. How much did they drink? Considering each of them probably drank 5.
Right. And where I'm like, okay, it's a Wednesday night, folks. You guys are really all in on this. I'm like, I'm good for a couple, but people really have fun. I think it's the festive environment. So
absolutely. So for someone who's never been to night market, how would you describe it?
I would say that it's like a convergence of everything the city has to offer. So it's a free outdoor event. It has 100 vendors that are local entrepreneurs, makers, artists, performers, and that all of that transforms the heart of our city right on West Wisconsin Avenue. And I'd say it's the heart of our state as well. It's the state's main street. So it's really just a fusion of all Milwaukee has to offer. And it's a really diverse event in terms of the people that attend the event and as well as the vendor makeup as well.
Absolutely. And so what, as we said, there was one in June, there's one in July, there's one tonight, and there's one also next month in September. So what is unique about tonight's night market that's different from the other three?
I would say it's the there's always some different vendors. So we have 140 vendors throughout the 4 market season. And 100 of them will be featured tonight. So we'll always have at least 15 to 20 vendors that are different every month. So you'll have that piece of it. But I would also say the entertainment schedule, it's different every month. And we partner with this great organization called True School, and they're a local nonprofit based in Westtown. And they, their mission is really to work with local Milwaukee youth to engage and empower them in teaching them how to be DJs, breakdancing, visual art, music production. And so they curate the entertainment lineup, which really kind of creates this special vibe at the night market, right at MLK, which was formerly 3rd Street and Wisconsin Avenue in our entertainment zone. And this month, I think what they put together is really cool. They, so not only do they have their DJs performing from 5 to 10, but they have at the top of each hour some type of really special performance, and that we really give them creative license to put together. And this month, I think it's really cool. At 6 o'clock, they have a Indian dance group called Spindle India. And they're there promoting India Fest, which is this weekend in Humboldt.
Oh,
Park.
cool.
So I think that's super cool. I'm excited for that. 7 o'clock, we have the Milwaukee Flyers, which is a tumbling group that are always so much fun. And then 8 o'clock, we actually have a fire dancer, Prismatic Flame, and which will look cool because by 8 o'clock, it's going to be, significantly dark out. And it's just a very cool, it's a cool image to see right in the middle of the street in downtown. It does make me nervous from an event production side because I'm like, okay, fire being thrown, is that safe? But they're very good at what they do. So I would say that entertainment schedule is pretty unique and cool. And I just alone, it just gives the event such a cool vibe.
Absolutely. So Night Market's been around since 2014.
Mm-hmm, correct.
But only it was during 2020 when Westtown took it over from Milwaukee, correct?
Correct. So Milwaukee started the event back when Mayor Barrett created this task force about West Wisconsin avenues, with the goal. It was a lot of people engaged in downtown and the real estate environment saying like, hey, we need some work on the avenue. And Milwaukee's goal was to put together some kind of quick win for activation. Like we knew some of these real estate projects would take a while, including the redevelopment of the Grand Avenue, but their idea was like, let's activate it in a quick way to get people back on the street, to show them that it's a real safe, it's a engaging environment that you'd want to maybe open a business and it's safe to hang out here. And so that, out of that came the night market, and the event just really took off under their organization. And I think they got it to the point where they're like, it's time to really hand this over to the right partner. And, we worked together with them on other projects, and they came to us in early 2021 and said, hey, how about taking this event over? Westtown had a background in event production, did a concert series, did a farmer's market. We produced the St. Patrick's Parade. And so we jumped on the opportunity, and we've kind of tried to put our own spin on the event since we took it over in 2021.
And how's it been going? I can't imagine. I'm marrying an event planner, but he He is the detail-oriented person, but when it comes to like trying to think through all of the details of putting on an event that is this big, especially something that's one night only, how many people does this take? How much coordination, and what has it been like to take over such a very appreciated and well-attended event that is outside, and there's a lot of issues, there's a lot of variables, I will say, that can pop up.
There is. For sure. It's really a year-round planning process because we have to raise, a significant amount of corporate sponsorship to put the event on, to underwrite the costs. So it's not a cheap event to produce. So we're raising funds through, our partners all year. But in terms of our internal staff, we only have a full-time staff of 2 people. So really, it takes a lot of our internal staff time, but we bring on a number of part-time people, interns, as well as day event support staff. And then we have these great production partners that help us with the cleanup, with, the actual production, AV, electrical, all of that is, vendors that we rely on. And I just actually heard, we also handle all of the on-site beverage sales, and just got a message that our bar manager has COVID. So I'll be managing the bar tonight. And that's what happens when you have a very lean operation like we do. And then you just, as you being, connected to the industry, you just make it work. And, so we have a very small, lean staff, but we do a lot in a short amount of time to make this event happen. So yes, exactly. As someone who does not always have a cool head when things go wrong, it's just, certainly you have to have that to be able to put on events like this. And so, separate from the event, this is just a question that I've been curious about, because there's West Town Association, there's East Town Association, and those are different than BIDs, which are business improvement districts, correct? Well, East Town Association, which is a partner organization east of the river, is not a business improvement district, but West Town is. We are.
Oh, okay.
It's an interesting dynamic in that west of the river, West Town, we're bid number 5. So the very first bid that started in the city was number 1. We're one of the older bids, but our bid is only 35 properties, and it covers our association boundaries are much bigger than our bid, which is only 35 properties. So we're a very small bid. But the interesting part of that is that our 35 property owners pay into bid 5, but they also pay into bid 21, which is the large downtown bid. So they are so committed to what is happening downtown. They're willing to assess themselves twice to different organizations. And we collaborate a lot, but kind of have different missions, in that we do a lot of programming and, events, and bid 21 does a lot of the large image type events like that you see, like this week, Employee Appreciation Week. So yes, we are a bid, a small one, but West Town also manages a separate bid that is the Riverwalk, bid number 15. So the downtown Riverwalk,
like where the Fonz is.
Yep, that is exactly where it is. And so that's the Riverwalk that was, now about 30 years old. It's the oldest segment of it. It was expanded into the 3rd Ward and into the Harbor District. But the older segment that you see in the Central Business District is also managed by the West Town Association. So that's something that we also work on, is keeping up that infrastructure, working with those property owners to make sure that the Riverwalk is in good physical condition.
Absolutely. And so I actually, in total honesty, before moving to Milwaukee, I didn't know I'd never heard a BID before, a business improvement district. And so what, for someone who would be new to that term, how would you describe the function that a BID plays? Because I know that we have a lot of them. We just had last week for Bronzeville Week, we had Renita Hill on, who is the historic MLK Drive BID director. And so what did the different bids in Milwaukee actually serve the purpose for?
Sure. I think all of the bids can, serve a slightly different mission. It's a group of property owners that get together that have this collective purpose to assess themselves on their property tax and use those funds for a collective mission. And it's interesting because they're not all the same missions. Riverwalk, that bid is really, it was number one, the purpose was to just, pay off the construction costs of the Riverwalk and then maintain it. Much different than, say, Westtown Association, which is very much their mission of the bid is to program the area and bring people to the area. So every bid can be slightly different. Some have, are very, and the budgets also can be very different as well. We have bids as with, budgets as much as $3 million down to that some that are a few $1,000s. And it depends on their rate of assessment, how many properties are in their bid. So they serve, various purposes, but a lot of them, really engage in economic development, marketing, event production. That's a very common theme with bids. And that's kind of, the role that Westtown plays.
So in the minute that we have left, where can anyone find more information of what they can expect or where they can park and all the things that they would need if they wanted to come to Night Market tonight?
Sure. They can find all of that information on our website, mkenightmarket.com. We urge people to, use the $3 affordable parking that our partners at the Avenue have set aside for the event. So it's the former Grand Avenue parking structure, $3 during the event time. It really makes it a turnkey process. Also, take the hop, take transit. It does get crowded downtown. So, and then on that website, we have a great list of all 100 vendors that are on.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today, Stacy. Stacy Cleese, Executive Director of Westtown Association. Have fun tonight.
Thank you.
The real estate market in Dane County and surrounding areas has been a bit of a hot mess this year. Listings are being picked off above asking prices and without the home inspection contingencies. I'm Todd Osborne, owner of Orion Inspections, and even if I weren't a home inspector, I'd still cringe a little if any of my friends or family tried to buy a home without an inspection. Let's take a good hard look at that house before you sign. Want to know more? I'm here to help. OrionInspections.com. That's Orion, like the constellation, inspections.com.
Hi, everyone. Listen to my show, The Matt McNeil Show, weekday afternoons at 3 p.m. on the Shaw 101. 1 hour every weekday where we'll talk all sorts of things like politics, especially with what's going on this election season, plus a lot of other things, too. Parenting, the arts, religion, music, beer. If it matters to Wisconsin and Minnesota, we'll talk about it. Phone calls are welcome at 952-946-6205 for 1 hour each day. Come see the Train Chimp, The Matt McNeil Show with the aggressive progressive Matt McNeil, 3 p.m. weekday afternoons right here on the Shaw 101.
President Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election.
Collectively, Republicans got 1.661 million votes, 51,000 more votes than Trump got.
He exhausted his cases. He exhausted the court challenges.
All the Republicans voted for Trump the way they voted for the assembly candidates. He would have won.
It was not rigged. It was not stolen. Donald Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election. It's really clear.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org.
Hi there, I'm Kirk Bankstad and I own the Minocqua Brewing Company, and I also have a super PAC. We make good trouble in the North Woods of Wisconsin. You can support our efforts at theminocquabrewingcompany.com and buy our Wogue gear like t-shirts, hoodies, and trucker hats. Enter the code RADIO and get 10% off on your next purchase. A portion of all sales support the Minocqua Brewing Company Super PAC, which is dark money meant for good. That's theminocquabrewingcompany.com.
Business in the front, party in the back. Kentucky waterfall, Mississippi mud flat. That denim downhill or Tennessee top hat. Missouri compromise, I got that shorty long back. It can be smaller or bigger, I ain't a stickler. It ranges from mini mullets to Florida, Georgia spine ticklers.
Is this an SNL sketch?
No, this is Jay Powell, the Mullet song. Kristin, I'm shocked that you.
How did I not know that there was a mullet? There's a song for those lyrics are pretty good. So you were probably alive when mullets were in style, I think I was alive. I think I was a baby though, because it was kind of more of an 80s thing, right?
Right, and that wasn't necessarily my genre of music because I always associate mullets with country music.
Is that? I don't know.
I think of Billy Ray Cyrus. Could there have been anybody more mullet friendly and kind of the embodiment of that whole look. Is that a good way to put it?
Yeah. And I was surprised because I feel like forever mullets have been, a joke. Who's a party, business in the front, party in the back. And I was very surprised when I was home in Wisconsin Rapids, where my parents live, and my cousin, who's still in high school, had a basketball game, and we went to go watch and support him. And I looked in the student section, and the amount of boys who had a mullet, I was like, wait, when did this
come back?
When did this come back? And I know that trends are cyclical. I just saw something the other day that skinny eyebrows might be coming back.
Oh, don't do that.
Oh, I certainly will not be doing
Trust
that.
me,
but
don't do that.
That was when I was in middle school. That was popular, and I plucked a lot of my mom wanted to kill me how much of my eyebrows I plucked out.
You're lucky because as you get older, they don't come back.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Men have the opposite problem. They have like caterpillars over their eyebrows, and
they just have more hair growing everywhere.
Yeah,
it's like out of
where
their
you
ears.
don't want it,
Yes,
and
exactly.
then women's disappear. But anyway,
and so I don't know if this was a trend that was coming back as something that was serious, as far as they thought this looked good, or if it's kind of the stupid things that high school boys do to think is funny. And so I asked my cousin's girlfriend. She goes, it's kind of both. And but news to me is that there is a USA Mullet Championship.
Of course there is.
And not only is it for adults, but there's a kid division. And there are 2 Wisconsin little boys.
Oh, we're so proud.
Who are in the who are finalists in the USA Mullet Competition Kid Division. And good for them. I think we have one of their dads talking about this.
The top 25 in the kids division of the USA Mullet Championship, the achievement selected by voters on Facebook earlier this week.
It was extremely fun to watch the votes. So it started out at, I think there's 600 kids that made the Facebook cut, and then it went to 100. And then all of a sudden we're watching the votes, and he kept climbing and climbing and climbing. And then he went to the 25.
The 8-year-old says he's been waiting a while to show off his mullet.
The last year, my parents found out about it, but it already started, so then we did it this year.
For Emmett's dad, Eric, the USA Mullet Championship is all about inspiring people to bring the 80s hairstyle back while supporting a good cause.
So it started out just mullets in general. They've come back in full force, and they're pretty fun to have. It was $10 to enter, and all the donations are going to the Michigan Wig Foundation for kids.
The winner of the contest will get $2,500. The Menominee student says he knows how he would spend the prize money.
Buy a go-kart.
Buy a go-kart. Good on that kid.
As one does.
So that sound is courtesy of weau.com and WMTV. And so that was Emmett Bailey of Menominee, and he's a 3rd grader. But then there is where is the other kid? He's from Breon.
From Breon.
Breon. I don't even know if Breon. It's Brillion.
Oh, Brillion.
Brillion.
I think it's Brillion. Yes.
Axel. He's a little bit younger. I think Axel looks like he might be like 6. And
Axel's name fits with the mullet.
It does. And he's got a little mohawk in the front. And I do have to admit, when you look, so if you go to the voting is on. So the voting started for the final winner of $2,500. The voting started on August 15th and it goes till Friday, August 19th. If you would like to vote, or if you would like to just look at these children and their mullets, because there's some really good ones on here, you can go to mulletchamp.com/2022-kids-division-voting. I'm sure if you just go to mulletchamp.com, you can also find your way into the kids division. But it was interesting as I was flipping through these. I mean, it does. I look through these and I wonder how much these parents have a sense of humor, if it's for the good cause of donating for wigs, or if it's like, this is the style. This is like the bowl cut.
This is it.
This is like, it's like, I'm cutting your hair, putting a bowl in your head. I'm cutting it around because this is easy to do.
You have no choice.
And then I was interested as I was looking through this, what states pop up the most. And we certainly have a lot of Oklahoma. I think the first 2 right away. We have 2 from Wisconsin, obviously. We got some Idaho, Georgia, Tennessee, 1 Minnesota, Maryland, Ohio. So it's like Florida. I've yet to see. Oh, there's one California, Fremont, California, Arkansas. But it's just like, so,
it's a lot more disparate than I would have expected.
How many states do you think? It would have all just been concentrated into like 3 states.
Well, I was expecting more Mississippi, Alabama, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Colorado, Nevada, Nebraska. What else do you have to do in Nebraska? Let's go into mullets.
It's also, I feel like there's also something flipping through this on the names of kids these days and how obscure parents are choosing to make their
unique.
Yes. And I thought about this because Mike has a niece who's 5. And I feel like in her daycare one year, it was like a Miko and there was all these crazy names. I can't remember them now, but it's just like, it's not a lot of Sarahs and Jonathans anymore. But this kid from Texas, who's got a pretty good one. It's like a lion's mane. Epic Orta.
His name is Epic?
His name is Epic Orta. And then Landry Turpin from Oklahoma. He has the American flag shaved into the side.
That's a whole different level.
So that's a commitment level as far as like keeping that clean, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like making sure the lines are clean so you can tell that it's a flag. I highly recommend checking out. I mean, these kids are cute. They're really cute. A lot of them are wearing like ridiculous sunglasses. And so I'm interested to see $2,500 is a lot for a kid.
Well, I was going to say that's a great down payment for something, or the start of a really nice bank account or savings account or something. That's nothing. There are adults who would do this for $2,500.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's adults who would do it for a lot less. There we go. You just
jump the gun.
On the mullet song. Yeah. But if you would like to go vote for your Wisconsin, the Wisconsin children, there's Emmett from Menominee, Emmett Bailey, and then there's Axel Wenzel from Brillion, Wisconsin, and it's the mulletchamp.com. So go check it out for a laugh and maybe vote because it's going to a good cause. All right, when we come back, we are going to be talking about First Nations and a bunch of different stories that are going on throughout the state of Wisconsin. Yes, we'll be right back. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Run your fingers through it, pull it. Yeah, you know you can't control it. Shake that ass and shake that mullet. If you're sexy and you know it, run your fingers through it, pull it. Yeah, you know you can't control it. Shake that ass and shake that mullet. Shake your ass. This ain't trailer trash, babe. My mullet's made of class. Shake your ass. This ain't a fad, babe. My mullet's built to last. Yeah, if you're sexy and you know it, run your fingers through it.
Black Shirt Football is now on the radio. Every Friday night, WAUK 540 AM and 101 FM The Shaw will be broadcasting Waukesha South football games live. Cheer on the Black Shirts as they do battle with the toughest conference in the state. Pre-game for Waukesha South football starts at 6:30 every Friday with downtown Donnie Brown and Donnie Watermelon. Only on WAUK 540 AM and 101 FM The Shaw. Waukesha South football. Go Black Shirts.
Hey there, fellow working class heroes. I'm Rick Smith, host of The Rick Smith Show, and we are now on the air in Waukesha, live weeknights 8 to 10 p.m. right here on WAUK 540 AM, 101 FM The Shaw. Turn on, tune in, and help us rebuild the American dream. Check out our website at thericksmithshow.com. The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk. Weeknights 8 to 10 p.m. right here on WAUK 540 AM, 101 FM The Shaw.
You are listening to WAUK 540 AM Jackson, W226DR Waukesha, always streaming at WAUK Radio.
AP News. I'm Ed Donahue. After losing in yesterday's Republican primary, Wyoming Congresswoman Liz Cheney says she's thinking about running for president. Cheney's loss was due to her opposition of former President Donald Trump.
Let us resolve that we will stand together, Republicans, Democrats, and Independents, against those who would destroy our republic.
Cheney is one of the leaders of the committee investigating the Capitol riot. In New Hampshire, former Vice President Mike Pence is urging fellow Republicans to stop lashing out at the FBI over the search of former President Trump's Florida home last week.
Our party stands with the men and women who serve on the thin blue line at the federal and state and local level. These attacks on the FBI must stop. Calls to defund the FBI are just as wrong as calls to defund the police.
The government says the pace of sales at retailers was unchanged last month. One retailer in particular is
Hello.
Maybe you need a more muscular voice on talk radio. Maybe you need Matt Flynn direct. But Moscow Mitch just said that if the Republicans win the 2022 elections, he will block any Supreme Court nominee Biden puts up. So word to Justice Breyer, you idiot, retire, get out of there, open it up so Biden can put in a Supreme Court appointment. Do it nicely, retire. We'll give you a gold watch, retire.
Matt Flynn Direct airs weekdays from 6 to 8 a.m.
Cut you down. The Devil's Advocates.
Aaron Mostovsky, who rioted at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, was dressed as Captain Caveman. QAnon shaman meets Law and Order?
Right. I mean, he pulled it off a whole lot better than Aaron Mostovsky.
Well, let me read a quote from the judge in this case. I hope you'll leave some of this fantasy world behind. Mostovsky was sentenced to 8 months in prison.
Looking at the guy, he might be one who loses his mattress on the first day. Breaking news.
Follow the Devil's Advocates on Facebook and Twitter.
For Civic Media, I'm Jane Matnier with your headlines. Assembly Speaker Robin Voss telling reporters on Tuesday his former special prosecutor into the 2020 election, Michael Gableman, could lose his law license over his conduct in the more than $1 million taxpayer-funded investigation. Voss, who fired Gableman last Friday, says the decision on whether to revoke Gableman's law license would be made by the Office of Lawyer Regulation, the agency of the Wisconsin Supreme Court that receives grievances related to lawyer misconduct. The months-long investigation found no evidence of widespread voter fraud. Governor Evers announcing a new $10 million grant program to help private well owners fighting against contamination. The program provides one-time funding through federal COVID-19 relief under the American Rescue Plan. Mostly sunny today, high 79, clear tonight, low 56. You're listening to The Shaw, 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM.
Live programming for WAUK Radio 540 AM and 101 FM is produced right in the Shaw in beautiful downtown Waukesha, Wisconsin.
The Shaw 101 FM, your fix for progressive talk. From Butler to Wind Lake. Always streaming at WAUKradio.com.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin, Brey. So when I'm not at the radio station, one of my other jobs is a video columnist for Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. And one of the things I've been wanting to do and start is crossing those two worlds and inviting, instead of just editorializing the great reporting that reporters from Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, Green Bay Gazette, across all the Gannett USA Today properties in Wisconsin are doing for local journalism, actually inviting reporters on to talk about their stories. And so the first time we're doing that is today. And so we are joined today by the Native American Affairs reporter for all of the USA Today network publications in Wisconsin, Frank Vesviles. Did I say that right?
Vesviles.
Vesviles.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you over Zoom. Thank you for joining us today.
Nice to meet you too. Thanks for having me.
And so you've been covering this beat for 2 years?
Yes, since June of 2020.
And was anyone covering it before you?
No. This is a relatively new beat in Wisconsin. It's, it hasn't really been done before. I came through a nonprofit organization called Report for America that aims to place journalists across the country in undercovered beats. So this was definitely an undercovered beat in Wisconsin. And, some, thought, that I wouldn't be able to find enough stories or it might not be interesting enough, but with 12 Indigenous nations in Wisconsin, there's plenty of stories to go around, and I'm turning other reporters in our company. Other reporters are asking me if they can cover this or that, and I welcome the help. I think we should have more reporters covering Indian country in Wisconsin. It's too much for me one time. Otherwise I would have to do like maybe 8-10 stories a week. But
yeah.
But I'm glad that other reporters are stepping up and finding stories as well. So yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, it was interesting because, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, Wisconsin, as far as east of the Mississippi, still has one of the largest, if not the largest state with the largest Indigenous population.
Yes, correct.
Yes, and so it would seem that yes, there are a lot of stories to tell, and I don't even think we can get to all of the ones. We won't have time today to get to all the stories you've written just this summer, but I picked out a couple of them that I thought were interesting and definitely our audience would love to hear more about. And so one that I saw, I don't think it was the first time you reported on it today, but in your First Nations newsletter, talking about, and we had talked about this a couple weeks ago, as far as the Menominee Nation having potentially trying to build a new casino in Kenosha. And I didn't know a lot about it, but as reading this morning, and what your newsletter that went out this morning was that it's a little bit more complicated and controversial within the different tribes than it seems on face value.
Right. Well, this is a story that's been followed mostly by the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel and my colleagues there, such as Drake Brentley and Carrie Spivak. They've been covering that for years. Menominee has been trying to open a casino there for decades now, but I started receiving statements from Oneida and Stockbridge Muncie how they support their efforts to open to expand gaming there, and I didn't really see anyone else reporting that part of it. How other tribes feel about it, and then I asked them, and then I figured that Potawatomi and Ho Chunk would be most affected with the competition there, because Potawatomi has their casino in Milwaukee. So I just reached out to them, and they said they are against it, but not for the competition reason, but because because Menominee is working with an organization from Florida on the Hard Rock International, which is owned by the Seminole tribe there. It was purchased like 2007, I think, by that tribe. Oneida has worked with that tribe too in national Indian gaming efforts across the country, but Potawatomi is opposed to a tribe from Florida coming into Wisconsin and potentially profiting millions of dollars and bringing that back to Florida and not staying in Wisconsin. And then another reason why the Potawatomi are opposed to it is because that's ancestral tribal land for the Potawatomi, which extend, their land had extended from Door County, the Door County area along the coast all the way to Milwaukee, Kenosha, Chicago, and then it extends eastward toward Detroit and probably about half of the state of what is now known as Michigan, and then into Ohio. So they had a vast territory, and they figure it's their right. If anyone should open a casino there, it should be them, because that's their ancestral land. But the Oneida and Menominee, the Oneida and Stockbridge Munsee, they support the Menominee's efforts because Menominee is one of the poorest tribes in Wisconsin, and a lot of the revenue that the tribes depend on for healthcare, education, infrastructure such as roads, that comes from gaming, and then also those tribes have a relationship from the going back to the 1800s, early to mid 1800s, is when basically when the Stockbridge Munsee and Oneida were forced out of New York when the Europeans came over and just kind of took their land, and then they were forced to relocate to Wisconsin, which was then known as Indian country. They settled on land that was Menominee, so they had a relationship with the Menominee since then. So they've always been really friendly with each other. So.
And how different, or how do the decisions like this ultimately get decided? Like, how much is this between the different nations and also between the governor or in the legislature? Like, who all needs to be involved as these kind of developments happen?
Well, it is it is a long process. The whole chunk are wanting to open a casino in Beloit, and that took that's a 3-year process, and they had the support from the Potawatomi, and then tribes didn't really have a problem with them opening there, but the Potawatomi officials are saying with them being opposed to this, it could take even longer, or they could stand to block it, because that's one of the stipulations. It seems is that it can't have an adverse effect on other tribes in the area, or that other tribes can't oppose the opening of a new gaming area. So yeah, it's a federal process. It could take years, and it has to be approved by the governor. It was vetoed. That proposal was vetoed by former Governor Scott Walker back in 2015 when the Menominee had proposed opening a casino there back then. So yeah, it still seems like kind of a long shot, but we'll see. So.
Yeah. Well, and then one of the other articles that I saw that you wrote that were for 2 different art exhibits that are happening that are, I don't know if representing is the right word that I want to use, but I'm lacking the right word as far as 2 significant, one ongoing and one past the problems, very big problems in Indigenous culture. And the first one was No More Stolen Sisters, which is the ongoing, I don't know if the word is epidemic, but as how many missing and murdered Indigenous women are in Wisconsin and nationwide. And then the other one being Away from Home, which I know this summer has gotten a lot of the story of how many children were ripped from their families and put into quote unquote white boarding schools. And so I have not gotten a chance to see either of these exhibits yet, but I'd love to hear more about both the stories and the exhibits themselves.
Right, sure. Yeah, I think one of them has already ended. One of them is about to end. But yes, it's there are very deeply emotional issues that affect Indian country. Like you said, the Indian boarding schools. They've there are still boarding schools and schools, but they're not the practices that they've had in the past, which was basically to forcibly assimilate Indigenous children, and they would do things like punish them for if they spoke their own Indigenous language, because they wanted them to speak only English, and then they cut off their braids, or the Indian braids, and just trying to suppress their culture a lot. And there was a lot of abuse reported at these schools, physical and sexual abuse, and it was very traumatizing. And this was at the Manitowoc library. This is a traveling exhibit, and it's very powerful, especially when you see they have a display of handcuffs. There were child-sized handcuffs that they use on children, and they have stories and there are some people who did benefit from these schools. They learned a lot, got an education, even though they had to put up with some of the hardships, but they were some of them felt that they had a lot of that they got a lot out of it. And then the More Stolen Sisters exhibits at the Raw West Museum in Manitowoc, also just a few blocks away from the library. That's these are art pieces focusing on the epidemic, you're right in calling it that, of murdered and missing Indigenous women, who are 3 times more likely to be murdered than white women. And it's an issue that people are still investigating and trying to find out the exact reasons and the causes why. So,
and I saw, because it's still open, as far as Attorney General Josh Kaul had formed the Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women Task Force. I don't know if has there been any updates or findings, or because as he's obviously up for re-election, and so is there any line of sight to having some conclusion to that task force?
They're getting close to it. They've gotten some money for research, and they're still in the midst of the researching phase. But they're tasked with putting that report together by the end of the year, because as you said, that's when Attorney General Kaul's present term expires, and he's enough if he'll get voted back in. So that's the aim, to have a report ready by the end of the year, and they're going to have their recommendations to law enforcement, and also and one of their tasks is also to form a database of who's exactly missing and murdered Indigenous, because there's no formal database here in Wisconsin to just kind of keep track of the numbers. They have the rough estimate numbers, but this is being a more accurate report they're looking for, so that law enforcement can work off of. And basically what they're calling for is more collaboration between law enforcement agencies with federal, tribal police, and county police, more of that working together to try to solve these cases. So that's a major recommendation that they're likely going to have in that report.
Absolutely. And so we have to take a break quickly, but because you've also written about the relationship between Indigenous tribes and the police, which is probably part of the task force, and it's all interconnected. So we're going to take a break really quickly, but our guest right now is Frank Vasvilas, who's the Native American Affairs reporter for the USA Today network of publications in Wisconsin. We'll take a break, and we'll be right back.
WAUK and the Shaw are the new kids on the radio block, and that block happens to be on Wisconsin Ave, Waukesha. Now is a great time to advertise locally with 540 AM and the Shaw 101 FM, while the ads are inexpensive and the audience is rapidly growing. Sponsorships available for This Week in Waukesha, Raised in the Shaw, or live local music on the weekends. Spring packages starting at just $495 a month. Get started today by emailing info@waukradio.com.
President Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election.
Collectively, Republicans got 1.661 million votes, 51,000 more votes than Trump got.
He exhausted his cases. He exhausted the court challenges.
All the Republicans voted for Trump the way they voted for the assembly candidates, he would have won.
It was not rigged. It was not stolen. Donald Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election. It's really clear.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org.
Join the WAUK 540 AM and 101 FM The Shaw team when we broadcast live from the Waukesha Farmers Market, beginning Saturday, June 4th and lasting all summer long. Former Waukesha Alderman Don Brown hosts This Week in Waukesha, 8 to 9 a.m. Then former U.S. Attorney James Santel launches his new Saturday morning show from 9 to 11. Raised in the Shaw with host Joel Clayfish rounds out the Saturday morning lineup, 11 to noon. Come to the Waukesha Farmers Market for the only radio program broadcasting live from the Shaw.
Hey, it's Kristin Brey from As Goes Wisconsin, which is now a radio show. That's right, I'm taking the same fun and uncomplicated approach to talking about state and local news to the airwaves. Starting July 5th, me and my friends from all parts of the state and all different backgrounds will break down the Wisconsin headlines in a way that informs, entertains, and hopefully makes you laugh. Tune in to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey, Monday through Friday from 12 p.m. to 2 on 101 FM The Shaw and WAUK 540 AM.
Hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, yo. Hey, hey yo, hey yo, yo. Hey yo, hey yo, yo. Yo, hey, hey yo, hey yo. Hey, hey yo, hey yo.
Ooh, I like that. Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey. Our guest today is Frank Vasvilas, who is the First Nations reporter for Green Bay Gazette and then also all the other USA Today publications in Wisconsin. And, you know, it was interesting. We're talking about different stories you've written this summer. We could probably spend all 2 hours talking about the different stories you've written this summer. So we'll have to have you back. But when I first got back to Wisconsin in 2020, I was living with my parents in Wisconsin Rapids, and they grew up in Wisconsin Rapids. And obviously that was a summer of a lot of racial reckoning after the murder of George Floyd. And I remember my mom and I having a lot of conversations, but one of which was when they were growing up in Wisconsin Rapids, so central Wisconsin, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, they did not see a lot of Black people. They did see a lot of Indigenous people, and she spoke about how much of the stories that often get publicized of in the Black community of how police their relationship with police bubbles up into the media, but that for her, she felt like so often the same stories were true in northern central Wisconsin as far as Indigenous people and in the different tribes and their relationship with police. And from one of the reports you did, or one of your newsletters from the summer, it doesn't seem like it's gotten much better. And so without spending, because we don't have a ton of time, but without spending too much time on it, but kind of what does that relationship look like? And is there anything being done to try to improve it?
Well, some years during my previous reporting, I found that that in some years in Wisconsin, Native Americans or American Indians, as they're classified in the prison system, is that they have the highest rate of incarceration for many years here in Wisconsin, especially like in northern Wisconsin, as you said, where there are reservations, where there's the county jails there could be filled with more than half of people who have Indigenous heritage, even though probably only 10 to 15% of the population of that county are Indigenous. But Chairman Hill of the Oneida Nation, he had recalled in the 90s how he would be harassed by Green Bay police because their reservation is just west of Green Bay. He would just be walking down the street, just be harassed there. But now he's the chairman of the Oneida Nation, and he's serving on Speaker Voss's it's a task force looking at this issue of how they can bridge relations between minorities and police, and he is bringing in that perspective here, and that task force was born out of the George Floyd protests and the Black Lives Matter movement, but he's bringing that Indigenous perspective, and he's the only one on that task force who has that point of view. So hopefully we'll see something come out of that, this year or next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, not everything you report on is sad. And so one of an upcoming event that isn't ending like the art museum, the art exhibits are, is the hit, I would say it's a hit show, Reservation Dogs. Is it Hulu?
Yes.
I always get confused with the streaming services of like, I know it's a hit show, but like, where do you actually find it? And this is a show that has kind of been hailed, it's a comedy, but it's, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's kind of been hailed as one of the most accurate depictions of modern, like, Indigenous kids and kind of like how, or teenagers, and like how they exist in the world, and their storylines being full characters, and it's supposed to be very funny. Yeah. And two of the actors from it are actually coming to Green Bay, right?
Yes, correct. yes, two of the actors. They look like twins, but they're not twins. But it's Lil Mike and Funny Bone are their names, and they're going to have a hip hop show here in Green Bay at the Widener Center and the University of Wisconsin campus. But in the show, they ride around on a bicycle, is kind of giving advice to the children and kind of like warning them, like who's out there to get them on, like the other kids that are against them, but they're really funny in the show. But yeah, they're so I'm looking forward to that as well. That's in a couple of weeks. I'm hoping to see them. So yeah, that'll be great.
So are there other shows that you've seen that you feel like do a good job at that?
Well, I'm hearing a lot about Brey, which is it's a film that's also on Hulu.
Okay.
It's a prequel to that Predator, which is that 80s Arnold Schwarzenegger film where he battles a alien warrior. But this is 300 years earlier, and the alien warrior comes and he fights a band of Comanches. So that's supposed to be, so it's getting a lot of good reviews. It's supposed to be action, so I might, that was pretty good. And there's other movies that are also have more of a this deeply emotional, such as one that talks about boarding schools. That's called Indian Horse. That's a really emotional movie there, where this kid suffers abuse at a boarding school, and how he survived it. How he's reviving his culture, and it's all about perseverance and endurance and coming back from that. And then there's Wind River, starring Jeremy Renner. That's about the MMIW epidemic. He plays he's a law enforcement officer investigating one of these cases, and it's pretty interesting, and especially about the cause of what causes some of these, or which is what a lot of advocates are saying cause, which are these man camps, resource extractions on or near reservations, where there are these all male camps from all over the country. And they're hardly and they're just giving free reign there, and they're hardly they're calling for more police action, but there's not a lot of police, so you're having thousands of men from different parts of the country on these reservations, so that's part of the problem.
Great. Well, in the last couple seconds that we have, where can people find you and the First Nations Wisconsin newsletter?
Sure, we're right on the front page of the Green Bay Press Gazette. You can sign up for the First Nations newsletter there. Or you could just type in my last name and Google, and I'll pop up. So
perfect. Well, Frank, thank you so much for joining us today. Frank Vassilis is the Native American Affairs reporter for the USA Today network of publications in Wisconsin. We will surely have you back to talk about more stories in your reporting. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
The Shaw 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM, Wisconsin's home for rational talk radio.
Hey everybody, I'm Joel Clayfish, and I've got a new show on WAUK 540 AM 101 FM, The Shaw. It's called Raised in the Shaw with Joel Clayfish. I was born and raised in Waukesha, and you wouldn't believe what a springboard that is for a crazy, exciting life. We'll talk provider lifestyle, hunting, fishing, and of course, cooking from field to table, because food's my favorite dish. We'll have local and national celebrity guests. Join us at 7 Thursdays for Raised in the Shaw. See you then.
Free and equal education is and has always been a cornerstone to this nation. Yet our public school system, once the envy of the world, has never faced more scrutiny than right now. Caught between political bickering and big business cash grabs, our schools are under attack, and the people that stand to lose the most are our children. Join Dr. Tim Slacker and Dr. Johnny Lupinacci for Busted Pencils Radio. Each week they take on the challenges and issues facing our schools, teachers, and communities. Busted Pencils, Tuesdays at 7, right here.
I'm Ed Donahue with an AP News Minute. Soaring gas prices have been dropping, but they're still high. Here's the AP's Rita Foley.
The national average for a gallon of gas is now $3.94, says the AAA. That's 59 cents less than a month ago.
EDC initiative and was not directed by the White House. During the pandemic, there was frustration, especially among Republicans in Congress like Texas's Chip Roy over a CDC guidance.
The vaccines work or they don't work. Do the masks work or they don't work?
I'd like to know which it is.
The changes include restructuring the CDC Communications Office and further revamping websites to make the agency's guidance for the public more clear and easier to find. It has long been criticized for focusing on collection and analysis of data, but not acting quickly against new health threats. Walensky says this will not simply be moving the boxes on the organizational chart, but includes altering the organizational chart to undo some changes made during the Trump administration.
We tried Dynovite nutritional supplement, and after a couple of weeks, we noticed a big difference. Our little Gizmo's coat was shinier, and there was a lot less scratching and shedding.
My dog smelled and scratched constantly. We bathed and sprayed her, took her to the vet, but no results. Now, a little Dynovite in her food helps Bella keep her beautiful coat with no scratching or smell.
Happier, healthier with every bite. Over 1 million pets helped with Dynovite.
Angie's List is now Angie, your home for everything home. With Angie, you could cross your next project off your to-do list before this ad is over. Just tell us what you need, and we'll handle the rest, sending a top pro to get it done. Or browse reviews, compare quotes from pros, and connect instantly, all for free. For everything from routine maintenance to a dream remodel. Because however you want your project done, we'll get it done. Download the app or go to Angie.com. That's ANGI.com to get started.
For Civic Media, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. The man who fraudulently requested a handful of absentee ballots that did not belong to him, Harry Waite, has now put out a statement that he will be contesting the certification of the August 9th primary election results in Racine County. Included in those results being contested is Wisconsin's 63rd Assembly District, where incumbent Assembly Speaker Robin Vos narrowly defeated a primary challenger by less than 300 votes. During a meeting with press yesterday, Republican U.S. Senator Ron Johnson doubled down on praise he had for Harry Waite over the weekend, stating it was a good thing Waite was illegally requesting absentee ballots and blamed the Wisconsin Elections Commission. Waite has confessed to committing election fraud and requesting the absentee ballots of other voters illegally. Forecast of a mix of clouds and sunshine today with a high of 78 degrees. Mostly clear skies expected this evening with an overnight low of 55 degrees. You're listening to the Shaw 101 FM WAUK 540 AM.
Do the politicians polka and stay into it greedy packs. Best foot forward, aim to please in public. Fancy footwork's done behind their backs.
Welcome back to East Coast Wisconsin with Kristin, Brey. One of the things, because I forgot who had this idea in the last week or so that we should have a Spotify playlist of all of our bumper music as guests come in and suggest. You know, Frank obviously just had 2 really great fun songs, right? And then I'm trying to think of someone actually listening to the playlist, and then the Mullet song and the Politicians polka coming on, and then be like, skip.
No, it's exposure to a wide range of musical genres, Kristin.
Of creative genius.
We're just embracing everything here on this show.
Well, there's so many different ways to go. I wanted to spend this segment kind of just doing a level set of voting in Wisconsin and not the actual accurate action of voting, but the nonsense that continues. And so I switched up at first for my video for Milwaukee Journal Sentinel this week. I was like, I feel like I should talk about Gableman. But then I also figured by the time we recorded it yesterday and we posted it, it would be a little bit stale. And I also justified it saying, well, I don't think he's going away.
But there's always wrinkles.
There's always wrinkles. And so I feel like let's start with what we just heard in the news update, which I actually missed this. I didn't realize this happened last night. But Harry Waite.
Guy from Racine County,
who at the end of July admitted that he purposefully illegally committed voter fraud to prove a point that the myvote.wi.gov system is not foolproof, which of course it's not, because it's not made for people to purposefully commit voter fraud. But he basically, for 10 different people who he had their address, he had their name. What I don't know is if he clearly didn't have all these people's IDs. And so did all 10 of these, because and I know this because I made this video. This was like my first As Goes Wisconsin video, is when you're requesting an absentee ballot, you have to upload a picture of your ID.
Yes.
And one of the things that happened in April 2020, when there was such a rush for people to do that, was people were sending selfies. People didn't know how to, and like the first video I made was me showing my mom how to do it, and it being a step-by-step video to show that it's much easier on your phone, yada, yada, yada. And so, first of all, for him to have done this, he either also had the consent of all these people, so he had a picture of their IDs if they weren't already in the system, or all these people requested absentee ballots in the past and had an uploaded
already
like
done.
A picture of their ID. So that has not been reported on. I'm kind of surprised no one's asked that question, or if they have, I haven't seen the article write up of like how he got around that. But basically, he had their address. He did it for Voss. Who was the other person he did it for?
The Racine mayor.
The Racine mayor. And he was able, without it getting flagged, to request ballots. And he also had put in a different address from the address that these people were registered at. Now, I don't think he actually got the ballots, though.
And he didn't submit them. Had he gotten the ballots and filled them out and sent them in, isn't that where other checks come into?
It's other checks that come in, because I know this because I just did this. I have it checked that send me my absentee ballots for the entire year. So if you go in at the beginning of the year, as we said yesterday when Angela Lang was on, we have an election every 6 months. So it's a good way to remember when primaries are for nonpartisan seats, and that, already next year in February, we'll have the primary for the nonpartisan seats, including Supreme Court, the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And then in April, we'll have the general nonpartisan election. And so I just go in, I check the box, I say, send them all. So, but then because I procrastinate now twice, both elections this year, the primary, I think it was the primary, and no, I don't know, one of the spring elections, either the primary or the general. And then last Tuesday, I had to bring my absentee ballot in with me because I waited too long to mail it. And so I had to still go to my my polling place, hand them my absentee ballot, which they destroyed. And then you can see on the voter log that my name is there, and it's highlighted in yellow, and it said sent, absentee ballot sent. So if I were to have shown up trying to vote at my polling place and I didn't have my absentee ballot, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't have let me vote.
I'm almost positive
they would have said, no, you have your absentee ballot. You haven't spoiled your ballot.
You have to use that.
You have to use that. And so, again, he admitted it, from the way I understand the story. He admitted it before there was any further checks to make sure that this was on the up and up. And now he's, from some people, including Ron Johnson,
our senator,
Mandatory Johnson, including by him saying that he's some sort of like white hat hero and not a criminal, which, by the way, this is also within the same year that the Republican candidate for Attorney General, Eric Toney, made a example out of 5 different people who he prosecuted them basically to the upteenth of the law for people who registered to vote at their UPS address instead of their home address, which is illegal. Like, you need to have an actual physical address. You can't have a PO box.
Right?
But he basically prosecuted them as aggressively as he could, and some critics said it was abuse of his power and his discretion. So in the same year where people made mistakes, we're going to prosecute them. But for this guy who purposefully tried to commit voter fraud because he's trying to make a point, there's now conflicting opinions on whether or not we should actually try to prosecute this person.
Well, do you remember Crystal Mason? So she's the Texas woman who believed she had the right to vote, even though she was a prior felon.
And she hadn't completely
finished her probation or whatever. And she spent 5 years. She's still behind bars.
I know.
She's still in prison. And that was, as you said, that was an inadvertence. That was a mistake. And this person did this intentionally, knowing it was illegal.
You know what that just made me think of is the stories that you'll hear every once in a while when a parent will lie about their address so their kid can go to a different school district.
Oh, sure.
And then those people get prosecuted. And then we have politicians who lie about where they actually live.
A bunch of them.
A bunch of them. I mean, Bob Donovan just won his assembly primary for Greenfield after running for Milwaukee mayor.
Well, look at Tim Michaels. And I realize that the candidate for governor spends X number of days in Wisconsin every year, but it sounds like that's just so he can keep his eligibility to vote here because he's been living on the East Coast for a decade.
It's probably also so that he pays Wisconsin taxes.
Yeah.
Because that's certainly, I mean, I know a fair amount of finance bros who spend, enough time in Texas, in Austin, to be able to pay no income taxes, despite the fact that they spend little less than half the year in New York.
Really?
Yeah.
So it can also be a handy tax dodge.
Yes. And so because income taxes are different depending on what state you go to. Sure. And while Wisconsin is not zero, it's less than Illinois. It's less than California.
Very
I remember
true.
That's the thing that's so funny. I remember I spent my entire adult life until 2020 living in the two highest tax states in the country, California and New York. And I remember the first time paying taxes in Wisconsin. Granted, I wasn't making that much money, but realizing it's like 6% back that I was paying before.
So it really was considered.
So for me, it was like, this is like a tax break moving back to Wisconsin versus, the people who are pushing the idea that Wisconsin would be more competitive if we got rid of the income tax altogether, which I'm sure at some point we're going to cover that on this show because I find that argument interesting because we don't have the same certain appeals that a place like Texas or Florida and other states that don't have income tax have, but I digress. Anyways, back to the point at hand. So anyways, Harry Waite, this is the background of this guy. So while it's basically an ongoing investigation if they're going to prosecute him at all, yesterday, he has announced that he is going to contest Voss's win in Racine.
This would be Assembly Speaker Robin Voss.
This would be Assembly Speaker Robin Voss, who only won his primary by 260 votes against Adam Steen, who is largely almost completely unknown, who had no money for his campaign, but got Donald Trump's endorsement, got Michael Gableman's endorsement, got Janelle Branchen's endorsement.
Michael Gableman, who, by the way, was just fired by Robin Voss.
Largely, because he endorsed Adam Steen. And so now this Harry Waite character is saying he wants to contest the primary. I don't know what standing he has to do that or how that will end up working, but that's happening. Simultaneously, there's at least suggestions that Gableman might lose. I mean, because this is what I said. I was like, there's no way Gableman's going away. And Voss insinuated that he might lose his law license over his behavior, and that there's been multiple reports of his behavior to the Office of Lawyer Regulation, which is an agency of the Wisconsin Supreme Court, and they're who are in charge of revoking law licenses. So we got that going on. Then we have Representative Janelle Branchin criticizing Robin Voss because she's like, if you're going to be this hard on Gableman, you need to be this hard on the Wisconsin Elections Commission. And like I said, Ron Johnson saying, I think this guy is a white hat hacker about Harry Waite. And what will have to happen for this to end?
Well, I find it fascinating that it's taken 14, 15 months. Now we're just getting complaints about Michael Gableman's handling of this to the board that oversees lawyers.
Oh no, I think it's
been ongoing.
I think it's been ongoing. I think it's stuff because between his misogynistic comments, his he was held in contempt for like $2,000 a day, but when he wasn't turning over records, like the list of things that he did over the last year, I think is long. So I think this was just referenced in the article yesterday where Voss said maybe he'll lose his law license.
But I have to think, with all of this behind the scenes sniping at one another, I don't know that this is going to end or how this is going to end. I think it's going to be really, really interesting. we have, again, with all these backdoor maneuvers, and you stabbed me, now I'm going to stab you, and we'll see who else I can get to stab you in the back.
Well, and it's also just this idea that unless your person wins, it must have been rigged, right? Like even in Arizona with Kari Lake, who won the Republican primary, it was close, and I think it was 2-ish days until they had a final count. But the night of the election, she was already saying it. She was like, if I don't win, it's rigged.
Well, that's absurd.
And then she won, and then she kind of obviously didn't think it was there was no election fraud because she won.
But these people need to be held accountable when they make those claims like that. And I am disappointed in our media, and I'm disappointed in our reporters when they don't press those people harder when they do things like that.
I know.
It's disappointing and it's frustrating. We've talked about wanting to have access to these people, yet at the same time, you can't just let them say all these blatant falsehoods and move on and go, oh, okay.
Well,
you're right.
They said this,
oh, okay.
and that like the headline is they said this, and then in the middle of the article is you cannot decertify the election.
Right.
That has been proven to be impossible. There has been no fraud. Like there's been no evidence of fraud. Like instead of the thing being representative lies.
Yeah. Wait a minute. That's not true. That is called a lie.
Yeah, and it's I think this fall will be interesting because I think if we get through the election, because there's polling is polling, and I actually on my drive to work today, I was like, we should get Charles Franklin as a guest.
Oh, that'd be great.
Right after the next Marquette poll comes out, just to talk about polling in general and what it means and
how it works.
Because this will be a state that, as goes Wisconsin, right? We have the Trump endorsed governor, but how does that perform in a general? We have a very unpopular Ron Johnson, who is also an ally of Trump's. How will that perform in the general? Where are independents? Where are our swing voters? And how much will this general election shift how much people are clinging to these? It was rigged. Bah! All right, this is As Goes Wisconsin. Come back after the break.
Fancy footwork's done behind their backs.
We tax away your money, spinning facts to go our way. And before our
Printable report of the condition of the house, things to keep an eye on, any safety issues or defects, and the knowledge to make smart, informed decisions. Your instinct is telling you to get an inspection, and instincts are usually right. Learn more or schedule today at orioninspections.com.
Hi, everyone. Listen to my show, The Matt McNeil Show, weekday afternoons at 3 p.m. on the Shaw 101. 1 hour every weekday where we'll talk all sorts of things like politics, especially with what's going on this election season, plus a lot of other things, too. Parenting, the arts, religion, music, beer. If it matters to Wisconsin and Minnesota, we'll talk about it. Phone calls are welcome at 952-946-6205. For 1 hour each day, come see the train chimp, The Matt McNeil Show, with the aggressive progressive Matt McNeil, 3 p.m. weekday afternoons right here on the Shaw 101.
Let me tell you about Ruby Isle Auto in Milwaukee. They're family owned, and John, Kathy, Jim, and Corey have been in business over 40 years. Ruby Isle Auto is located at 11137 West Silver Spring Drive, right off of I-41. And if you mention WAUK 540 AM or the Earl Ingram Show, you get $10 off your oil change. Schedule today by calling 414-438-1900. Ruby Isle Auto, your friends in the car business.
I love my dog. Yes, I love my dog.
You want that on our Spotify
I
list.
do.
You know you do.
I do. I'm going to sing it to Cliff. Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. We have one segment left, and this is a story you found that is both sad and uplifting because they're little tiny puppies.
There's puppies, you guys, and if you live in the Wausau area, you're going to tune into this. In 2019, this woman who lived in northern Wisconsin showed up on my Twitter feed after she found a puppy in a ditch who had been abandoned and left outside overnight during the winter in northern Wisconsin, and she adopted him, and they found out that a VBP, a very bad person, had also abandoned this puppy's brothers and sisters, and they all ended up at the Forest County Humane Society, and it all has a happy ending, and Larry, the puppy with the pink collar, has a wonderful life, and his sisters all got adopted. Well, she posted on Twitter again this week that the same thing happened recently, and joining us is the director of the Forest County Humane Society, Crystal Ross. Crystal, tell me about they're only 2 to 3 week old pups that just got found.
Yeah, hi. So it was a week ago tomorrow, and a box of puppies came in. They were in a banana box, this time posed to poor Larry, who was in a garbage bag. And they were, very hot, and because they were abandoned on the side of the road, and it was quite the day, let me tell you.
Crystal, how 2 to 3 weeks old, they're still nursing, aren't they?
I know. Yep. They had no teeth. They still today. I think they're probably about 3.5 weeks old now. They don't have any teeth yet, so we're still, feeding them every day, every 3 hours. So it's quite the process, but they're doing exceptionally well.
I was going to ask, how are they? I mean, looking at the picture of have you guys figured out what kind of breed of dog they are?
I believe they're like a German Shepherd mix puppies.
Oh, they're
starting to waddle around, and we're trying to get them to, know how to drink out of the little bowl with formula and a little bit of Pet Fresh. Fresh Pet. All mushed up and stuff, and they're very adorable puppies. They're doing really well.
When will they be ready, do you think, to find their forever homes?
Probably we have to keep them till probably they're at least 9 weeks old, just to make sure that they can get their their vaccinations and their health checks and microchips and all that stuff. But we're asking people to put their applications in now, and that way they can start have a place to go when they're old enough, ready to go.
And where can people apply?
They can go to our website at forestcountyhumanesociety.org, and we have a link on the top that says Adopt, and you can just go right there and submit your application to me.
Crystal Ross is the director of the Forest County Humane Society. You're in Crandon, right, Crystal?
Yep, we're in Crandon.
And one of the reasons why we really wanted to have you on is if you are a person who is in a situation where you cannot take care of your animals, dogs, cats, you name it, don't take this choice.
Oh, no.
There's so many other options, and there are agencies to help these people, right?
There's countless people that would help. Please never ever do this. Seriously, if you have to, please just call me on either at work or text me on my cell phone. We will not look down on you. We will not criticize you. We will not do, we'll uplift you and ensure that they will find good homes. And it's there's so many options. Please don't ever do that.
And I think, I think too, Crystal, I think a lot of people start out with really good intentions when they take in animals, and then sometimes it just snowballs and it becomes something that's right. It's out of their control, they feel.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And sometimes, it's occurrences change every day for people. So that's why I want people to know that, we're here for a reason. That's why, we're never result to that or any other type of option like that, because we're here to help.
And is it often that this scenario, if someone gets a dog and they don't have the financial resources to get it spayed or neutered, and then all of a sudden the dog gets pregnant, if they have a girl, and then all of a sudden they have puppies, is that usually the scenario of that the obstacle or the cost of spaying and neutering your dogs is kind of where this leads to?
Yep, absolutely. So right now we have, I'm going to say possibly 4 to 5 other pregnant dogs at our facility right now, in addition to the puppies. So it happens quite often, but there's so many other options post doing that, and just reach out. And we're actually going to be trying to, establish. It's hard to find a vet in our area in the Northwoods right now, just because they're so overworked and there's not a lot of veterinarians up here. So we're trying to establish some kind of a program. I don't know what we are going to do. What we're trying to reach out all avenues, basically, to try to help people even more than we can right now. So that's something huge that we need in our area. If there's any veterinarians out there.
Hey, if you're a vet and you're looking for a place to go,
it's God's country.
I'm telling you, it's beautiful.
You better believe it. It is, and I tell you, there would be no lack of work.
Yeah.
Crystal Ross is the director of the Forest County Humane Society in Crandon. Crystal, I'm sure you guys have all kinds of needs. If people are listening and they can't necessarily adopt a pupper, can they make a donation?
Definitely. They can go on our website, once again, at forestcountyhumanesociety.org. We have a donate button on there. And then we also have a link on our Facebook page, or they could mail a check if they wanted to, or even a card would be amazing. It's uplifting to get a card to our post office box 57 in Crandon, Wisconsin, 54520. Or you can call me anytime and check on the puppies. I'd be happy to give updates. We need formula for them. They're definitely very hungry little guys.
Oh, my heart just breaks. I love.
We would adopt. Yeah, we would adopt them all if we could, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I say the same thing. It's a good thing I'm there at the shelter, or they would be coming home with me every day.
Thank you so much for doing what you do, Crystal Ross.
It's my pleasure.
Forest County Humane Society. You can check them out online on Facebook, and let's help them out and get those puppers some homes.
Get some homes. Well, we are through our today's show, and tomorrow is a big, exciting show. Michael Sampson, 5th runner-up for Milwaukee mayor.
All wedding all the time.
And my fiance will be here tomorrow, so join us tomorrow, As Goes Wisconsin.